I posted an article about EDC and how I got moved to Las Vegas.
Right.
And
people aren't happy.
No, not at all. And like that article alone, my publication isn't as big as I'd like it to be. 950 hits in one day.
Sure.
950 hits. So people were definitely like just outraged, and I'm sure Insomniac's got their reasons behind why. Of course, you know.
It's not the promoter's fault. It's
right.
It's the moral majority.
Right.
Anti-rave backlash, isn't it?
Yeah.
And believe you me, being from the UK, I mean, I've been at the epicenter of rave since it started, and I've seen 2 generations of anti-rave backlashes probably to an even worse extent than you've got it here, where you like the front pages of every newspaper is kind of dominated by rave, the new social poison, and which it's a difficult conversation, because there've been similar scenarios at home where there've been 1 or 2 drugs overdose related deaths, which you would never belittle. That's not something to laugh about, but you need to put it in the context of the fact that in the UK, and there is a parallel between the UK and what goes on certainly in Southern California in the dance scene. In the UK, if you go to a sort of pub or a rock gig or anywhere basically where young people hang out en masse in numbers, similar things have happened. So it's very easy to kind of put 2 and 2 together and make 5 and assume that raves and electronic music equals kind of en masse debauchery and drug taking, but it's not. To me, that's not the bottom line. The bottom line is it's that young people, unfortunately, it will experiment with drugs. That's what happens. You can't. Like it or loathe it. That's the reality, and the vast majority of them come out of it, a few years later, just unaffected. Sadly, a few have more long-term problems. So it's a difficult subject to talk about. I wouldn't want to belittle it in any way, but at the same time, you need to see things in the broader context. And the broader context is probably, I regularly DJ in Singapore, which has got the oldest dance culture in Asia. It's got the oldest dance club, a club called Zouk, which has been open 20 years. It's had a massive festival called Zouk Out, which by Singaporean standards was huge, attracted 40,000 people for David Guetta and Tiesto a few months ago on the beachfront of Sentosa. And Singapore has a 0 tolerance to drugs. I mean, it's not just 0 tolerance, people don't take drugs. They don't. I mean, as you land into Singapore airport, on the immigration card it says death for drug smugglers. Singapore has a huge dance culture. People, it had the original dance culture in Asia without drugs. So surely that is enough evidence to prove that drugs and dance culture don't, the drugs don't generate the passion for the music. The music is a passion enough of itself. And unfortunately, when lots of young people get together, there will be a drugs element. It's more about, the law of averages says if you stick 50 to 100,000 18 to 25-year-olds in one place, there will be drugs.
Which is what we've been seeing in terms of we've seen from 1990 to about 2000, we saw a pretty good dance scene, and around 2000 it kind of died out. Now it's, I've seen lately, maybe around 2005, I'd like to say, the dance scene started picking up. How do you feel about LA's dance scene just coming up and opening its arms to the scene itself?
Well, I think LA, for as long as I've been coming to the US, I mean, I've been DJing for a bit more than 20 years, in fact, but only been coming to the US for about 10. And LA, from the very first time I came, was obviously the best during that period, the epicenter of dance music. Not just the raves or the big events, your Monster Massives, your Together Is Ones, which I did a lot of, but also the clubs were just streets ahead in terms of people's musical understanding, their preparedness to kind of just embrace any new style, new DJs. There's a clear kind of West Coast, East Coast divide. And obviously LA is at the epicenter of it, but even going to San Francisco, San Diego, or up to Seattle, you'll find you're much more likely as a DJ to find yourself appreciated and understood, and not almost feel kind of straitjacketed into playing a slightly more commercial sound than you might do on the East Coast. So I mean, I love LA. It's a real shame if hopefully people will appreciate just how important the music is, and not focus on the kind of the nasty little headlines.
Well, definitely I think Insomniac has taken a step into promoting that, these these are for the purpose of dance music, the appreciation of dance itself, you know, by then putting like crews like the Get Up and Dance crew, as if you've seen, and like also getting rid of like orbiters and light shows. So I think they have taken a step. As for, I know you've DJed at Ruby Sky, San Francisco, and as well as LA, but I think, what is your favorite place to play at over San Francisco and LA? Is it LA or San Francisco?
No, I mean, I've had more great experiences in LA, I've got to say, but I think San Francisco's history goes back longer in terms of electronic music culture. But in terms of the here and now, my best experience has been here. But I wouldn't knock San Francisco, because when I see that on the itinerary, I'm still happy to be going. Yeah.
So you're always hyped up about coming to the U.S.
Yeah, I mean, well, certainly the West Coast, yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about Judgment Sundays, your club over in Ibiza.
Well, this will be its 12th year, which is just it's mind-blowing that, you know, when I started it, I was being booked by 4 or 5 different clubs: Space, Pasha, Amnesia. I was doing them on a kind of rotational basis, and I was putting really good numbers. And I thought, well, hell, why not? Let's start my own night. And if you'd asked me then, you know, would it still be going 12 years later, I would have laughed in your face at the point of hysteria. But at the same time, a lot of work goes into it. It's not just about me, it's about using DJs that I really believe in, you know, building some names and, you know, trying to uncover new talent. I mean, it's important to remember that Tiesto, Armin both had their first Ibiza gigs there, Ferry Corsten, all in my night, and, you know, some of whom have gone on to have their own nights, and, you know, we're really good mates. It's not as if I've got any issue with them moving on and doing that. But, you know, discovery of talent has always been what my night's been about. It's not just about me. I've got 2 small kids who are kind of at school in the UK, but my wife just so wants to move here, and I'm like, well, it's a bit hard when you've got 2 small kids.
It's big change.
You know, I mean, obviously, I live in I do a very young job, but you know, increasing amount. You know, Armin van Buuren, for example, is about to have his first child this summer, and Ferry Corsten had his first child a couple of years ago. My kids are a little bit older than that, but still quite young. And it does. Once you have kids, unfortunately, as a DJ, it does kind of ground you to the place that you're. In which you were sort of born and raised. So
for the most part, you're planning on staying maybe in Ibiza.
Yeah, well, I live in London. I'm in Ibiza in the summer. I live in London for the rest of the year.
Yeah, because we've seen, like, you know, DJs like Tiesto has recently claimed his residency down in Las Vegas. Are you, by any chance, planning on maybe coming to our Las Vegas EDC? Have any talks on that?
Well, I hope so. I mean, I'm waiting to be asked. I mean, it's certainly been talked about. I mean, it's difficult for me because I need to get back to Ibiza for a Sunday, and actually going from the West Coast of the US to Ibiza, it involves, it's pretty much, with the time difference, it's effectively like a 36-hour trip.
So how would it be like to, maybe, if you did get the opportunity to DJ in Las Vegas, what would that be like for you? Would that be a new experience, or have you done Las Vegas before?
Oh, I've done Las Vegas lots of times, yeah.
So would you be willing to do something like that for your fans?
For EDC?
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, I mean, I'm crossing my fingers. I mean, basically, the only way I could do EDC is do the Friday night, literally take the whole Saturday night off to fly back to Ibiza to get there on the Sunday. But that's how much I want to do it, that I'm happy to kind of sacrifice the whole Saturday, which I can't remember, in 10 years I don't think I've sacrificed a Saturday. Yeah. That's how important it is to me.
So how is, tell me a little bit about Sundays. Is it pretty big over in Ibiza?
Yeah, I mean, there are a few key nights in Ibiza, and my night's one of the most consistent. There's not many nights that have lasted as long as mine. There's probably Cream, Space on Sundays. Even the likes of Carl Cox or Armin haven't been doing their nights as long. Tiesto's only a couple of years of history, but, you know, I mean, and it's busy, and the atmosphere. I don't know. It's really difficult. You almost feel inclined to say, you know, look at it on the website. The best thing, the second best thing, is going and checking out the footage on YouTube. The only real option is to go there and experience it for yourself, because the atmosphere is special. It really is special.
Definitely. So one more question. There's about 20 minutes before you go on. The event's 3 days sold out before. What's going through you right now, right before you're about to play?
Well, for bigger events, for festivals, and I do lots of festivals, it's particularly in the summer in the UK, because I can't do that many festivals in the US in the summer because I can't get back to my Ibiza night. But for the bigger events that are really where people's decisions about their favourite DJs are made, I do go into it having not necessarily planned, but I've got a fairly good idea what I'm going to play. Whereas if I go and do a club set, that's when I'll literally just decide what to play on the spur of the moment, because obviously you need to test tracks. It's all very well being sent a tune, or receiving a download link, which is the way that tunes get promoted, and thinking it's great in the confines of your own speakers at home, but until you've actually gone out there and road tested it, and not just heard it, but felt it through the speakers, felt it through the kind of eye contact. That's when you realise what makes a great track. So festivals aren't about experimentation; they're about taking that kind of litmus paper, that road testing that you've done in clubs over the previous months, and kind of distilling that into what you play in a festival setting.